to the Climate Alarm Clock, your Irish climate news podcast. I am Ciara Daly, and that means this is the climate question episode where I'm going to do my best to help you get caught up on some of those sticky topics that sometimes feel like they have a bit of nuance to them, or maybe they just feel like they're a bit too overwhelming or maybe even boring to figure out questions for. I mean,
boring.
I get it. I know, but Anna, for some people like myself, learning about climate change can be a little bit boring. I know it will shock you, but it's the truth. And I'm here. I'm a truth sharer. I'm like Donald Trump. I'm the Donald Trump of climate change. Anyway, there is a lot of terminology out there. So we're going to try and break through some of that. And that's going to be really helpful for people like me who sometimes mightn't feel like they have the head to try and understand what all these terms mean. So to help me put it into normal human language, I am joined by two fantastic co-hosts, Anna Pringle and Darragh Wynne. So, Darragh, I'm going to let you have the floor first, seeing as Anna's already burst through the door. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Great. And Anna, what about you? I know you're shocked that not everyone finds this as riveting as you.
I know, yeah. I'm still trying to process that you said you're the Donald Trump of what now?
Of climate change. I'm bringing truth to climate change.
Okay. As long as you're not Elon Musk, he says it's all fine and we don't have to be doing anything, so...
Oh, and Donald Trump's
sells
really,
electric cars.
He's really good on the climate front. You're right there.
Yeah.
Okay, before we kind of descend into madness, I want to just give you a quick reminder that you can, of course, give us your money. We're always accepting of your cash. You can buy us a coffee. If you want to support the podcast, you can do that through buymeacoffee.com/the climate alarm. This is a voluntarily run podcast, so the contributions go a long way towards helping us keep with the upkeep of it all. So let's move on to this week's climate question, which is all around offsetting. So what is offsetting? Does it really work? Yeah, let's just start with the term check. What is offsetting? Anna, I'm going to throw it to you, seeing as you think it's all so very clear.
I never said that. Offsetting is very murky, actually. But what the term means is it means that it's a way of allowing, think about it as spending. So if you're using carbon, it's a way of allowing you to offset that by removing carbon somewhere else. So I'm looking for a better definition than that. So it's a way of compensating for emissions of carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases. So if you emit greenhouse gases, you find a way to reduce them somewhere else or to compensate for that emission somewhere else. And it can happen...
So you're paying somebody else
to effectively. But it can happen at an individual level, at a country level, at a business level. So corporations do it, countries do it, individuals do it. So it's just a way of basically compensating for the emissions that you're generating.
Yeah, so if you...
And how do you do that?
Go ahead, Darragh.
Oh yeah, so no, I was just going to say, so how would you do that? So if you buy a flight, for example, like Ryanair give you the option to offset it. So some high polluting companies now have like options that you can pay to offset. So maybe you buy a flight and then you donate to them and they will have a tree planting project. Or I know Ryanair were doing something with the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group. Or you can look up offsetting websites yourself, and often it's things like, nature restoration or tree planting, that you have something that has high emissions and they'll calculate, to offset that, you need to plant this many trees. Yeah, so that's how you do it.
So it sounds like a brilliant solution and we're out of the clear.
That's it. If we all just offset away, we'll be grand.
Yeah. So I'm sure it doesn't work like that. Do you want to talk me through what kind of the positives and the negatives are? I'm sure there's plenty.
So I might start off maybe like in kind of favor of offsetting. My whole climate journey and my whole climate podcasting journey started with a lesser known podcast called Carbon Neutral Lent, where myself and a good friend of mine tried to keep track of our emissions and reduce our emissions throughout Lent for food, heating, transport, electricity, and calculated our emissions for the entirety of Lent, and then at the end planted some trees to kind of offset what we had done. And at the time, I thought, oh, this is great because, I'm first of all working to reduce emissions. And then what I can't reduce, I'm planting trees. And so I've had no impact on the environment for those couple of months. So, that sounds, I think, quite good because there are some emissions that you can't get rid of entirely. So it's like, oh, that seems like a good thing to do. So I think that's kind of the appeal of offsetting, is that you can, on paper at least, have no impact on the climate by putting money into projects that will sequester carbon. So that's kind of the positives. Will I keep going with the negatives, or Anna, are you chomping at the bit to get into?
So that's the positives. And there's a couple of question marks about all that. So one is, what's the quality of the offsetting project? So are you sure those trees were actually planted? Are those trees still alive a year later? And all of those kinds of questions. So that's one challenge to it. The other challenge to it, though, is that we can't keep putting carbon into the air and depending on taking it back out again. So it's not actually reducing emissions; it's just transferring them, basically. So there's not a net reduction of emissions in offsetting usually. And then the big issue with that is that then it allows people, as Darragh did during his carbon neutral Lent, to feel good about what he's doing because he's offsetting with all the best will in the world. And it allows entities such as big corporations and so on to say, well, we're carbon neutral, we're doing this offsetting, when in fact it's not really happening the way it should be, and it allows everybody to feel okay about it. So it allows me to feel okay about taking a flight because I've planted a few trees.
Okay, so it's making us emotionally feel better, but practically it's not actually doing
right. In fact, practically it's giving you a license to continue flying because you feel like you're offsetting, even though you're not. The amount of trees that need to be planted to offset a ton of CO2, 1 ton of CO2 has to be up to 46 trees have to be planted to offset that. And that's if they continue to grow to maturity and so on, they will take out the CO2. So there's a lot of question marks about it.
So you're saying if they continue to grow, why wouldn't they continue to grow?
Forest fires, for example, disease. There's plenty of examples of forestry that does not grow to maturity or is damaged, or and actually, ironically, as the climate warms, the risk to forests is much higher than it was previously. So you've got extreme forest fires. You see that every summer in Canada, in Greece, in California, and elsewhere. In Ireland, we see the importation of new diseases that are affecting trees. Ash dieback being one very visible one. So there's no guarantee. Also, by the way, trees can be cut down. So there's no guarantee that they will continue to sequester.
And another thing is it's very that thing of the it will take 46 trees for a ton of carbon. It's quite complicated to get the exact figures. Every field will be different, every tree will be different, so it's really difficult to get that. I think the point that Anna made though there is really important, is that offsetting, like with me doing the carbon neutral Lent, but more worryingly with big companies, they can pay to offset their emissions by contributing to these offsetting projects, be it rainforest restoration or whatever, and then they can say they're carbon neutral and carry on business as usual. So offsetting basically gives you a get out of jail free card. So rather than having a big hard look at your business and your operations and thinking, we should probably install loads of solar panels and stop, having fossil fuel generated electricity. That'll take time, that'll take money, that'll take effort. Or we can just pay for some offsetting and say that we're carbon neutral. So it basically gives people an easy way to continue business as usual, not actually make the changes that are needed to be made, and offset instead. And like for me, like we need it all, you know. We need the rainforest restoration,
Yeah.
whether or not big businesses
Yeah.
are paying for it. But we also need big businesses to stop putting emissions into the atmosphere.
reduce.
Like
Yep.
maybe offsetting is a thing that
Yeah.
would have worked, I don't know, 70 years ago. To be like, oh, you know, we need to fix this, and the people who are doing the damage here will fix this, and then, you know, whatever. But we're at a stage now where we need the emissions to stop, and we need the nature restoration.
Yeah. I mean, Darragh, you said a really key thing there. That it allows companies to pay for offsetting. And one of the things, of course, that has happened now is there's an offsetting market. So there's all these, you know, companies that will say, you know, pay us and we'll do the offsetting for you. We'll give you certificates and so on. But what's been happening recently is those companies are being exposed, and you know, a lot of the so-called carbon offsets have been called junk.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been described as likely junk, so they're not actually even. They're making money for the offsetters, and they're allowing big companies to say we've offset, but they're actually not doing what they're supposed to be doing at all.
So there's companies like that. I saw that it's the big offenders that we always are talking about: ExxonMobil, like Disney, EasyJet. These are some of the companies that were kind of found to have
Invested in junk. Yeah.
their offsetting was bogus,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. So like, and that, I suppose that's where the nuance comes in. Like, because I work with small businesses, and I know actually some companies that do really genuine, like they're the offsetting that they do is genuine, and actually they don't even count it as offsetting. They just invest in
Yep.
tree planting, and it's not as offsetting. But there is that kind of grey area, I suppose. There is that. It can cause a lot of confusion. Like, there is a difference between a company like ExxonMobil investing in offsetting versus like a restaurant up the road from you. Like, this is a small family business who has actually actively made an
Well, yeah.
an effort to reduce their thing.
But I mean, ExxonMobil, just to use the example you used, is the biggest polluter on the planet. It's one of the biggest companies
Yes,
on
that's
the
what I
planet.
mean. They're-
And you know, the best thing they could do is stop bloody well, you know, selling oil and gas. Stop digging it out of the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Any amount of offsetting is not going to offset the damage that ExxonMobil has done for the last 50 years and continues to do.
Yeah,
So you know,
and-
so you're right.
But that's what I mean. The nuance
Yeah.
comes into it. Yeah.
And I think to come in, like, to your point about the small businesses, Ciara, like, my personal thing with the carbon neutral lens thing is, like, I realized, offsetting, like, that's not a good thing. Like, that's not really a meaningful thing for me to do. What is more important or more meaningful is to be socially conscious and be environmentally conscious. So it's like what you said about those businesses. They're contributing to tree planting things. They're contributing to environmental initiatives, but it's not we're doing this and now we're carbon neutral. It's we're a business that care about environmental issues, and we're going to contribute to those organizations. And we also have a carbon footprint. We also have emissions associated with our business, and we're trying to reduce them. And
Yeah.
also, like, we value the work that we do, and we think the work that we do is important, and there are emissions associated with it, and that's that. I think, like, if everyone kind of owned their emissions a bit more, basically, and we're also socially conscious and sort of investing in environmental projects because they have a value, not because it makes your business carbon neutral or whatever, then
not
that's
because
a better
it gives
place
you
to be.
license to pollute.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, yeah, like, I mean, I think like recycling is a good analogy for offsetting, in that, you know, we all think, oh, we're recycling, so we're doing okay, you know, etc. And that allows the likes of Coca-Cola or whoever to sell you more plastic bottles. But actually, it's a joke. I mean, recycling does not achieve what we think it achieves. And the only way to achieve that is by not buying bottles of Coke or, plastic bottles or whatever. So because it's not reducing the amount of plastic that's in the environment. So I think offsetting is kind of similar to that.
Just one other thing then, I suppose, like we've talked about offsetting, as planting trees or whatever. There are some other like really weird and questionable offsetting initiatives that would get like carbon credits and would be verified. So that lead to kind of a danger of double counting. So I don't know if it's still the case, but initially when people were retrofitting their houses, for example, the retrofit companies would work out, this house is going to reduce their emissions by, let's say, I don't know what it would be, at 1 ton a year. They would then get carbon credits that they could sell for doing retrofitting. So say a business could be like, I'm going to offset my emissions by buying the carbon credits from that retrofitting company. So that leads then like to double counting of emissions or double counting of emission reduction potentially, because a household's like, we've reduced our emissions, and then a business is saying, we bought these emission reductions and now our emissions have been cut. So really weird things where and the same with the same with forestry, where maybe they're saying, now we've reduced the emissions on the land, but then they're also selling carbon credits. So and as a country, that's what we plan to do. When we don't hit our EU effort sharing targets, we'll buy credits from, Slovenia or wherever that has them. So that applies not just at a business level; it applies at a country level. Yeah. But I think I just found that like retrofitting one particularly mad. Where someone else has basically been able to buy your emissions reductions. Yeah. And at a country level, once again, I think, it should be fines that are then, if we're paying for it, it shouldn't be like, we're paying this and now we don't have to do anything. It should be like, we're fine and that money is going to be reinvested into green initiatives or whatever. Like, I think it sounds like it could be the same thing, but there's subtle differences.
So we're talking about kind of offsetting on the whole. What about one thing we've talked quite a bit about in the podcast is how Ireland is not meeting its climate targets. So if we bring it back to an Irish kind of conversation, how does offsetting fit into our plan for those targets that we have missed? Like, presumably we're going to be using that to make up for those target losses.
Well, yeah. So when we have a record of when we don't hit our targets of buying credits from elsewhere in the EU, and if we had credits ourselves, we could sell them, to another country. But we are never in that position. We're always in the position of having to make it up. But we will be facing big fines for not hitting our targets up to 2030.
So we'll be getting fines and paying for carbon credits all while having done nothing. Is that fair to say?
Oh, we're not having done nothing, but not having achieved.
Yeah, but not having achieved what we. Yeah.
And I think that's like,
very positive, Anna.
I think that gets to a really good point as well. Is like that money that you're spending on offsets could be spent on actually changing the way you operate as as an individual or as a business or as a country. And obviously, like, going on a bit of a tangent, but like the cost of decarbonizing is so much less than the cost of the climate impacts, like in the long term. So I think keeping that in mind, just kind of when you're talking about the national level, there was a story from 2020 about how Pascal Donoghue decided he was has introduced carbon offsetting for all government air travel, which is just, I don't know, it's quite a sad thing, really. As of 2023, it was €170,000 of money that had been paid on offsetting emissions from official government flights. And to me, it just shows like they don't get it at all, you know? Like for me, like air travel, some government air travel is really, really important, you know? It's like fair enough.
Everybody going off to the White House on Paddy's Day to suck up to the latest US president. That's important.
Are you being sarcastic, Anna?
Hey,
It's well worth the emissions, isn't it?
But they are the conversations that need to happen. You know, is this journey worth the emissions? You know, and
But I mean, I actually think that plan from Pascal wasn't a bad idea, and what they were saying was public bodies would have to pay into the Climate Action Fund for every flight they took. So it wasn't a bad idea, except that, as always in Ireland, it's all talk and no action. And so that was in 2020, and by the end of 23, most of the government bodies hadn't, or a lot of them had actually not made the payments. They're mandatory payments, but they hadn't made them. So you had examples of, this is from Justin McCarthy and RTE, and like you had, you know, the local government management agency said it made 5 flights in 2022 and is in the process of making payment, you know, and so, you know, all the regulatory bodies, you know, they hadn't made the payments. So if it's mandated and these are government agencies and they're still not doing what's mandated.
yeah.
yeah.
But they all said they're currently making arrangements to fulfill overdue payments. So, you know, Dublin City Council, for
And there was
example,
a lot of that, wasn't there? Like I saw Galway Council had
they had made no payments whatsoever. So I'm sure they were currently making the arrangements only when they got the query from the press. But I think paying into the Climate Action Fund, that's not a bad idea, because the activities and what that's funding are positive. But, you know.
That nuance again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, really.
So it seems like to me that carbon offsetting is just, it has benefits, but ultimately it is distracting from the bigger problem. Do we think that it works? What's our conclusion? How do we need to use it moving forward?
Yeah, like for me, you're seeing loads of businesses using it as a greenwash. Like it's one of the petrol companies here, is it Circle K? Or I don't know which one, have the like...
You're not going to have a go at the petrol station.
You know, have their carbon neutral fuel that they say that your petrol's been offset, or the same with some car insurance. It's like, oh, like if you buy insurance with us, we'll offset all your emissions. Like that's nonsense. Like that is greenwash, and that is like delay, and that is like cynical as well, because it's preying on people's want to do the right thing and their lack of knowledge. I'm really channeling Tom Spencer here. I'm pretty sure he said this in a podcast of ours at some stage. Shout out to Tom Spencer. So yeah, and just the whole culture of offsetting is just delaying the necessary action. But I think for me, what you said about those businesses, Ciara, that really care, still absolutely contribute to those kind of charities, to those organizations that are doing good work, particularly around nature restoration. Home Tree are an organization that do really, really cool stuff and have really cool community things and community tree planting days and stuff like that. That's really good. But don't do it as offsetting. Do it just as a compliment. It's not like
to what you're doing already.
Like the equivalent. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. Like the equivalent is like if you're a business that gives money to like an animal cruelty charity, you know, like to the ISPCA, you're not doing that because like your business is like being really cruel to dogs. You're like, oh, we're going to offset that animal cruelty by giving to the ISPCA, or yeah. So think of it in the way of just being like socially conscious, that it's a nice additional thing to do, but it's not actually, it's not making you carbon neutral. That would be my takeaway.
Which, from my experience of working with small businesses, is generally their approach. Like, they're, for the most part, very cautious about how they talk about those things. And a lot of them actually won't even talk about it because they'll be so conscious of coming across as greenwashing. And they know that it's not really made a difference. So, yeah. Okay, well, I think that concludes this week's episode, does it?
Should we give a shout out to a couple of, I think you mentioned a couple there, Darragh, but should we give a bigger shout out to some of the organisations that are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, there's definitely Home Tree. Like for me, I don't know if anyone else has used anything else.
Yeah, Home Tree is great. Trees on the Land is another one that helps people to plant native trees around Ireland as well. So they're definitely worth checking out too. And you have the joy of finding the little trees coming up around your land.
I want to give a shout out to Reforestation. That's an organisation I think are great.
Yeah, and the other thing I suppose is if you do have that money that you want to spend like in an environmentally conscious way, there's loads of ways of doing that. There's like, there's maybe if you had a lot of money, there's like taking unpaid leave and spending a bit more money on a ferry and a train than flying. Or there's...
Even like going and supporting a company like Green Earth Organics instead of going into the supermarket. That's offsetting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like spending the money on the more sustainable choices. That's exactly what I was going to say. Supporting those organizations, buying better quality stuff that will last rather than buying cheap stuff that will need to be replaced. All those kind of things.
If you're a meat eater, go and buy directly from a farmer or something like that.
Go and slaughter your own shit. I don't think farmers like you doing that though.
Actually, that's really hard to do. You'll have to work hard. But there is people that do stuff.
And then you'll have to offset that with the ISPCA then, Anna.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. So if you enjoyed listening to this riveting chat about carbon offsetting, please do let us know. Compliment us with a 5-star review. You can offset. Actually, that's great. That's a great way to offset your emissions. Flights. Just leaving a review to the Climate
if you buy us a coffee really, as well, that's another good, really offsetting. We
would never greenwash here. Not a coffee, just a green tea.
You can offset yourself out of here.
Perfect. Right, well, if you would like to drop us a line and let us know what you thought about what we had to say today, please drop us a line. You can do so through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We'll leave it there. Thanks Darragh and Anna, very much for sharing all your wise wisdom.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ciara.
Bye. That's offsetting.